so tired. Hey, good morning.
Hey, good morning. What's happening? Oh, look at us. We're wearing the same sweatshirt.
I said that to you, but I don't think you had your headphones in.
Oh,
So you
okay.
didn't respond to me. I was all excited.
I've got an interesting
You've got
light
some,
thing
yeah,
coming on here with the sun or
I
something.
kind of like it.
Yeah, I look cool.
Yeah,
That's
it's a
the
little
effects.
better
That's
though.
my AI effects on my camera and my screen.
Oh
All of a
yeah,
sudden,
yeah.
big
It's
time.
that morning light. How you doing?
I'm good. It's cold here in Florida. Did my
Mm.
plunge this morning. It's
What
nice
is it?
when
A
it's like
chilly 50 degrees?
no, it feels like it's in the 30s. People here are freaking out. So
Okay.
that's how you
Yeah.
know it's real.
Yeah. Good
So
morning, Omar. Good to see
Omar,
you.
yeah, cold where I think it's cold where everybody's at currently.
Yeah. I sat outside this morning. I like to sit outside in the mornings and just like have my coffee and read a little bit. And I was all bundled up and I could have stayed out longer. It felt pretty good, but my fingers and my nose were like burning. I realized like I should probably go inside. It's like 20 degrees outside. Yeah.
Yeah, that
Now I'm
makes
nice
it
and
tough.
toasty.
Yeah. What are you reading?
I'm reading a book called Trust Exercise. It's a fiction.
Oh,
It's a
okay.
novel. Yeah.
All right. All
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Everybody.
What's cold in Florida, Todd? I
Oh,
think Pat
geez.
missed it.
Everybody always. I'll tell you what. Coming from
Morning, Pat.
Colorado.
Yeah, Pat's asking
So
from Colorado. He's gonna be like, let's hear it. What do you
no,
got?
but I growing up in Colorado. So it's 37 and it feels like 29. Humidity in the
That is
air
cold.
makes cold significantly worse than you think it is. Colorado, it can be 30 degrees, but if the
Yeah.
wind's not blowing, it's not bad at all. So yeah,
And the
it's
heat
it's
too. The humidity will make it feel so much hotter and it will make it feel a lot colder. I will agree with you on that one.
yeah, 100%. There's no relief from the heat and the cold it's 12 right now. All right, you win. Sure, fine. There we go. Shout out K-Bo, L2 in Chicago.
Oh,
That's kind of your
hey.
regular rotation right there, isn't it?
I love Chicago. So great. I can't remember the name of the gym that we were at. Hey, Steve, tell me the name of the gym. It's on the tip of my head. Big Shoulders, I think. And he could say it
Saying
much better than that.
Steve, you remember Steve because he had big shoulders? Is that what you're saying?
Oh, CrossFit Big Shoulders. That's the
Oh,
name of
I
the
gotcha.
gym.
I
I
gotcha.
think. Yeah, if I'm remembering. Yeah, Big Shoulders in Elmhurst. Yeah. Good to see
There we
you.
go.
On here, Steve. Good morning. Cold in Chicago as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Cold everywhere for sure. Now, speaking of I don't know even know how to transition this. Speaking of
walking into I got it. Speaking of walking into the gym in the morning and being freezing and thinking all I want is to be in my nice warm bed right now. Let's talk a little bit about how you flip the switch and turn on the presence and attitude and bring the
That's a
energy
good,
for your class.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, these cold mornings when it's hard to get out of bed, you don't want to be there at the gym, depending on where you're at and what kind of climate control you do or do not have. I know there's gyms that when it's cold outside, it's colder inside the gym, or if it's hot outside, it's hotter inside the gym. All of that. How do I keep my athletes engaged? Oh, I'm getting called out here. Kelly's just Kelly, you don't see the sun coming in. Look at I'm trying to give you some effects here with the glow. She keeps giving me a hard time because of my I don't know if my skincare or lack of skincare and the way that I look on the calls for the knowledge. So
what do you like that you look pasty, sallow, if you will?
No, I don't know if it was sarcastic or not, but she said I had a glow the other day.
Oh, okay.
I told her I got some new tallow lotion I'm using.
Yeah.
It's pretty much just tallow. So
yeah. Well, take the glow off again. It's distracting.
Yeah, I don't know how to do that.
Yeah.
It's the sun coming through my window.
All right. We're good.
All right. Presence
Always
and
glowing.
attitude.
Yeah. Presence and attitude. How are you going to glow for your people?
So that and those are two different things. Presence, that's simply being present, being where you're at.
Command
and then
of the
having
room.
What's that?
Like command of the room. I know you said you're going to tell me. You're like, let's define presence. And this is it can be hard to define, I think, without just kind of using my hands and being like, it's just, it's your presence.
It's presence.
It's your presence. Don't you define a word with a word? Isn't that how you define a word?
Yeah, I think
It's
that
your
works.
presence. Yeah. But yeah, like command of the room, and just, that's all I got. So what else? What else?
So I think command of the room, like it's one of those deals where we'll say it sometimes, if somebody walked in off the street and you weren't wearing a shirt that obviously said coach, could people easily walk in and notice who was leading the class, who is in charge, who's in charge of things? I think that's a big part of it. The presence that you have commanding the group and leading the group. I think nowadays, especially like just being present, meaning mentally, along with physically, you are there. We have so many things going on in our head and so many distractions. I feel like it's very easy to be thinking about different things, or even having a conversation with a member, but looking past and watching something else that's happening and not being present in that conversation. And then there's
so
just
presence and being present, both those
yeah.
things. Mm-hmm.
And then I think there's a aspect of it of, here's another great word, the vibe that you give off, right? Like you can tell when somebody has a positive presence, a negative presence. Like there's this thing that's felt with the people you interact with, and you can kind of bring negativity or positivity into that class. And it's important to be the positive portion of this thing when you come in. So I think that's presence. I think those are a couple objective ways to look at what presence is.
Yeah, I really love the way you described if somebody were just to walk in, because that happens all the time, right? Like someone sees, they pop in to kind of check the class out, or even maybe they're just kind of wondering what's going on. And if they stand there and look around, and then they're like, that's the person, and they make a beeline for someone other than the lead coach, then, maybe you need to like amp your presence a little bit, right?
Yeah, like control the group. There's got to be something going on, right? Yeah. Control the group, do something like that.
Command and confidence, and yeah, I like it.
I like what Kay calls out here too, is like coaching people with different language. Mm-hmm. Like you can get the point across with a strong presence and like demonstrating and some visual cues and things like that, and still manage and control the group even if you don't speak the same language.
So yeah, you kind of got to be. It's almost like being. We talk a lot about being the biggest version of yourself you can. That's Kay's comment reminds me of that, right? Where if I'm demoing, or I'm using my hands, or I'm just trying to create this like larger than life almost, kind of vibe around me, where even though physically, obviously I haven't gotten any bigger, but just kind of that way that you hold yourself and move about the room, it just kind of radiates from you. And yeah, that's cool, Kay, because it's exactly that. You've got to like really use your energy and your body language when you're not speaking the same language.
I know on our call yesterday, Tanya came on and we were talking about what makes a great class, and presence and attitude obviously came up, and Tanya made mention of like, it's got to be you at 11. So just like you're saying right there, the biggest version of yourself, I think is huge.
I need you at an 11. Yeah. You're at a 3 right now, and I need you to bump that up a couple notches. Yeah, absolutely.
And you can demonstrate that with inflection of your voice. Mm-hmm. Like there should be changes in your tone. There should be like changes in your expressions. It's like the amount that you can, for lack of a better term, manipulate your athletes in your group just with your facial expressions and your tone. You can create excitement. You can calm people down. You can get people moving in the right direction. All that kind of stuff can happen with your tone of voice and your facial expressions.
Yeah. Now, and to that point, I think Omar makes a really good point here. People and athletes kind of mimic your attitude. And I absolutely agree with that. If we use that dial knob again, if the coach is kind of at a 3 and they're just like low energy, people respond to that. Whereas, walking in with a smile, following up on their daily lives, whether it's 5 o'clock in the morning or the very last class of the day, people feel that, they mimic it, they respond to it.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Now, so it's called presence and attitude. We defined the first one. We could define presence. I think there's a separation. There's a difference. Attitude. Tell me about attitude, K-Bo.
I think attitude is more of, how you're acting towards people, right? It's, again, like Omar just said, following up on people's day, being welcoming, asking people how they're doing, trying to be fun. It's just kind of the behavior that you're pairing with the presence that you have. Am I how?
Yeah,
What do I think? Yeah.
I think it's more of like an attitude. It's an attitude about the interaction that you're having with somebody, like the attitude that you have and the way you feel about the person, about what you're doing. Not only coaching, but the workout that you're coaching. Like I'm sure I know for myself, especially in my early days of coaching, when I was just getting into CrossFit and it was like it's amazing because there wasn't nearly as much content out there and there wasn't nearly as many people kind of distracting from the CrossFit methodology, but I would start going down a direction of like reading somebody's content or watching some videos and being like, yeah, this is it. This is how we should do it. And then all of a sudden there'd be a workout that was programmed that I didn't really like. And usually that was because it was a workout that I probably wouldn't be very good at.
Good at, yeah.
And so I had a negative attitude about the workout, and make no mistake, that negative attitude did not get disguised when I got into class and started coaching it. Whether I said that this workout sucks or not, like you can feel and see that attitude that somebody has about something. And that's why I think it's just so important for us. One, if we are going to do this thing, we need to be completely bought in and committed to it, even if it's like, maybe I'm unsure that I agree that this is the greatest workout in the world, but I am
I have been guilty of that for sure.
I'm so committed to the program. I'm so committed to my people. And I just have faith and trust in my gym owners or the people I'm doing this with that, you know what, I'm in. Doesn't matter. I'm going to put whatever my thoughts are aside and just be bought into it, as opposed to having that little like, oh, well, this actually sucks. I'm going to coach it because that's my job to coach it. But deep down, I know this sucks, because that energy that you bring and that attitude that you have is going to start seeping into the rest of the community, and it is going to cause issues.
Yeah, because let's be honest, if you go in there being like, this workout is dumb, everybody else is going to think, well, this workout's dumb. And then it's going to affect, it just is such a trickle down effect. Yeah, I've definitely been guilty of that. I think kind of having that, like, all right, you've got to think about the process over the content in situations like that, right? It's one class, this is the content, but what's the big overall process? What's the big picture here? And, like you said, it's just prioritizing the people, prioritizing the experience, and knowing that, in the big grand scheme of things, one workout's not going to really make or break everybody's fitness journey. So you're better about it now, I'm assuming.
Oh yeah. And it's just like, in my opinion, there's no such thing as a great workout. There's no such thing as a bad workout. It's just like a song, right? It's like, I might love this song and I think it's the best ever. And then I'm like, Cabo, you got to listen to this. And you're like,
and I guarantee you, I've ridden in a car with you before. I'll probably not like it.
Exactly. Right. And so there's so much of this of like, hey, I am committed to the thing. I'm committed to my gym. I'm committed to my members. I'm committed to CrossFit, and knowing that this is part of that, then I'm all in with it. And I know for myself, especially as a gym owner, in knowing myself as a coach to another gym owner that maybe wasn't the best coach and best, disciple that just followed in because I started to have my own opinions. Like that's one of the biggest criteria of coaching at my gym is like, hey, we're doing it. That means you're doing it. Nutrition challenge is happening. You're bought in. You're doing it. If you don't believe in this, let's have a discussion on why you don't believe in it. And then for now, I need you to believe in it for the 4 weeks or 6 weeks or 8 weeks or whatever it is that we are doing this. And if not, then we're going to have to figure something out, because if we're not all in, it's going to be hard to get everybody on board doing the same thing. And there's just going to cause some rift in the community. I've seen so many gyms and so many communities that have all of these different, I'm going to say cliques for lack of a better word, because you've got this coach that believes in this thing and isn't in line with what this coach is doing or what the owner is doing. And they kind of say that to their couple close buddies, and then they start to believe that. And it's like, if we're not all rowing the boat in the same direction, it's hard to get where we want to go. So, yeah. Omar, I like your point here of talking about good attitude, of like using positive cues versus negative cues to build people up. Yeah, I will definitely do that. Good job getting low, or something like that for somebody. Oh, that's great job. Keep getting low. That's it. For somebody who needs to be a little bit lower in their squat or something like that, rather than just continually telling them to get, no rep.
Don't do that.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, what do we got? I will carry it on with me from now on. The bigger you. Yep. Heck yeah. Yeah, exactly. Just be the biggest version of yourself. And when I was on the call yesterday, we talked about that, and doesn't mean you have to be somebody that you're not.
I love that you said that. I have that in my head to ask you about. So, because I think this is a little bit of a misconception when we talk about this, right? Like, just, turning the switch and you go from this person all of a sudden to this person, you're putting on this show, and we're asking people to be inauthentic or, fake. And that's not it at all, because I really think that people can feel inauthenticity pretty easily. They may not even realize they can, but if you're being a version of yourself that is just completely untrue to yourself, that's not what we're talking about when we say, flip the switch, turn the knob up, that, and that's where the be a bigger you comes from, right? Like, whatever that means for you. So Todd, you've got a group of coaches like on your staff. Would you, if you look at each one of them, would you say like each one of them kind of brings different strengths as far as presence and attitude to the table? Like, they just have completely different kind of vibes?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Everybody is different in the way that they do it. And you look at, like, I think of oftentimes people that we work with on seminar staff, and like two of the best that I've ever had the opportunity to work with.
Oh, I know who you're going to say.
Chuck Carswell comes to mind, right?
Yep. And
he's the guy that you walk in the room, he's there. Like, you hear that laugh.
Talk about presence.
Anywhere, right? And like, he's captivating when he's coaching. He's loud and commanding and all of that. Makes you feel like you've known him your whole life and you're the only person there. And then there's somebody like Adrian Bosman, who is more soft-spoken, doesn't just speak to speak for no reason. And he's one of those people that when I've been around him and I've seen him coaching, it's like he doesn't have to yell at anybody to get their attention, because the words that are going to come out of his mouth are so impactful. As soon as he opens his mouth, everybody like shuts up.
You could hear a pin drop. Yeah.
Oh yeah. It's like, I lean into this, and like, in my opinion, those two people couldn't be more polar opposites.
Yeah, those are great examples.
Both like have such strong presence and attitude, and like they are the biggest version of themselves when they're in that environment. And I think, getting a chance to work with both of them gave me that perspective of like, I know early on I was like, oh, okay, coaches are commanding and they're kind of drill sergeant-ish, and you've got to do this in order to command the group. I've got to show that I'm in charge and everybody's going to listen to me. And I'm like, no, but that's not really who I am. And thank goodness I was able to see some great examples of like, no, I don't have to be somebody I'm not. I just need to be who I am, as authentically as I can and as big as I possibly can, which is
cool. 11. Yeah. Make it an 11. Absolutely.
Yeah. 100%. Now, so we've discussed and essentially defined presence. We've defined presence and defined attitude. Now, when it comes to actually coaching classes, this is one of those things that's a little bit subjective. It's like, I always say that it's hard to put your finger on the thing that makes somebody great with their presence and attitude, but you know it. When you leave class, you're either like, man, that coach has great presence and attitude, or they don't. So that doesn't really help if I'm like, oh, this is just subjective. Be the biggest version of yourself, be an 11, and that works. It's like, no, we want something that's a little bit more objective and tangible. And there are some things, and I know it was said earlier, the voice inflection, I think, is a big piece of it, but there's some other things that we talk about in the coach development course in Affiliate University. And one of them is simply your posture, like standing tall and having confidence is a big part of that, along with what you are doing with your body language and your arms.
For sure.
Where
People
should your
oftentimes don't think about those things, right? They think like, okay, posture. I've just got to like, it's like you learn the manners book, right? Like shoulders back, head high.
Yeah, I'm
But
still
it's
working on
all,
that.
it's just body language in general and what you're portraying with what you're doing with your body language. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. And there are so many things, like when I learned what
Yep.
this was like and what this did and how this closes you off and how people respond and act to that, or like as soon as you cross your arms, then it's like I'm more closed off.
Closed
People are
off.
like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, Todd doesn't want to talk to me. He doesn't look as engaged, or the hands in the pockets,
Yep.
or
Even
the
when it's
coffee mug,
cold, even when it's cold,
which is
get
this
those
time of
hands
year
out
is
of
when
your
it's
pocket,
tough,
put
right?
some gloves on. Yeah.
Yeah, you're trying to be bundled up, or the person that's leaning against
Leaning.
the pull-up rig or hanging in between their things,
Right.
like they're hanging on the pull-up rig.
So
It's like,
disengaged, and perception is reality. That's the
yes,
deal. Like, even if you are jazzed to be there, you've got your lesson plan and you're enjoying yourself. If you've got your arms in the middle of the rings and you're just like leaning through the rings, hanging out there, that is not how it comes across to people. Yeah. So
yeah,
that the body language, posture, it's more important than a lot of people realize. More important than a lot of people realize.
and I think there's a lot of this stuff that there's just tendencies that we have, and a lot of times we're not even aware we do them. Oh, I didn't realize I was leaning up against the wall. I didn't realize that I walk around with my hands in my pocket the whole time, or like whenever I'm not saying something, I just naturally do this with my arms.
Oh,
And
and
so it's
I
like,
do it. I need to do something with my hands. So that's natural for me, for sure.
yeah, like I've tried to, instead of, as soon as I feel my hands start to do this, it's like, now I'll go behind if I need to make my hands touch, I'm going to put them behind my back. So trying to become aware of that. It doesn't mean that you're never going to do that again. It doesn't mean your hands are never going to go in your pocket, or they never should, or you never should cross, but you should at least start to have the awareness that as soon as this happens and I realize it, I need to be like, oh crap, I need to figure this out.
I
As soon
think
as
of
you
this kind of
realize
thing. Oh, go ahead.
that you're leaning against the rig, it's like, oh, I need to come out of this thing. I need to step away from that. Maybe, and maybe even set yourself up to where you don't get tempted. And it's like habit stacking, right? If I know that I lean against the rig every time I'm under the rig and I'm used to coaching under the rig,
Get rid of the rig.
I'm going to coach from somewhere else.
Yeah. What was I going to say? Oh, I do think of this kind of thing, kind of like, if you've got a filler word, or you say every other word and you have no idea, someone points it out to you, or you watch a video of yourself, and all of a sudden you're now aware of the fact that every other word you're saying, you're going to just, that first step of awareness, you're just going to hear it. You're going to hear it. You're going to hear it. You're going to hear it. This is very similar to that. Once you start to become aware of the idea that we don't want to be constantly crossing our arms or putting our hands in our pockets or leaning, then you're just going to start to notice when you do it. And you're going to start to notice if you do it all of the time. And I always think that's the first step of anything, just that self-awareness, starting to notice, and then you can make that correction. And like you said, Todd, I love how you're like, I'll notice when I put my hands, I start to go like this with my hands, and I'm like, oh, nope, going to put them behind my back. So, and it takes practice. Like you said, I'm sure if I observed your classes for a week, I'd see you with your hands in your pockets, your hands. And it's just, what is the overall, what's the overall vibe you're presenting? We're not going to come and like, dock your pay or whatever. If I see you crossing your hands, just, just be aware of it.
That's it. Every time they cross, that's a quarter.
That's
taking a quarter off
your paycheck.
I like what Cindy says here of like having some sort of trigger here. I think that's like habit stacking. If you guys have seen any of the, I believe it's James Clear stuff of like, hey, I've got this thing that I hold that prevents me from doing that. Now, I will say that there's potential to have something that creates another bad habit. I know people that like carry around markers and they fiddle with them and like take the lid's coming off and it's clicking, or they're holding the remote for the clock and they're just clicking the like battery holder thing off. That type of stuff is way more distracting to me as an athlete than somebody doing this. Mostly because I'm the gym owner and I'm like, you're going to break the thing off the battery, off the remote, and then my batteries are going to go flying everywhere. So figuring out ways to not fall into that trap, but then also hopefully not create another trigger or something like that.
I mean, in theory, hopefully you're just moving around the class doing so much coaching. You don't need to be standing there leaning up against the rig or fidgeting with a remote. You know,
there's probably some
might be a little bit of a bigger issue here.
Yeah,
if that's 100%. The case. Yeah.
I think, okay, so posture is a big one. Kate makes another great point here.
Okay. Yeah.
Eye contact. And this is one, and I've told this to my groups and my calls. I think both on the Knowledge Pro calls and then also in coach development calls. This is one, not that I struggle making eye contact with people, but I struggle maintaining it when I'm talking to people. And that's mostly because of the fact that like when I'm in the gym, I'm on like hyper alert. I'm hyper alert because I'm like, all right, we've got kids in here. They're swinging. Are they going to hurt themselves? Is that a new person that just walked in the door that's looking for somebody to talk to? And so if I'm having a conversation with you, my tendency to keep aware of what's going on is just for my eyes to start wandering. And there is nothing
make you feel not present.
Exactly. It makes people think you're not listening to them. Even though I'm listening, I'm just trying to be observant and see what's going on. But like you do that a couple times where I'm talking to you and I'm looking at you and then somebody walks in the door and my eyes drift this way. And then all of a sudden the person you're talking to stops and like turns and you're like, oh crap.
Or I'm just gonna maybe trail off and stop telling you what I'm telling you because I'm like, he's bored and not listening to me. So Absolutely. That I've definitely heard that a bunch from people, and I fall into that trap as well when I'm at the gym. What are some of your strategies to combat that? Because you can't just sit there in this isolated vacuum, right? You do need to see who's walking in, or you do need to make sure that people aren't doing stuff in the corner that is unsafe. So I have a strategy. I don't know if it's the best one, but what do you typically do?
Well, there's a couple things. Number one, if you set clear boundaries and rules for what's going on in your gym, that should prevent the kids from ending up somewhere where they're not. So it's like, hey, kids go here when workout's happening. They do not come on the floor. Kids know that. Parents know that. Now it's, there's clear boundaries. If something happens, the parent should be the first one before I'm coming over to do that. So it's like, all right, cool. I've made clear rules and boundaries. That should bend that
alleviate
thing off.
The children.
Yep.
But there's oftentimes adults that I'll be looking over and I'm like, you shouldn't be up on top of the rig like that, Yeah. So it can happen.
And if there is something
Yeah.
And I think there's a way to like keep my eyes focused on you, but out of my peripheral vision, I can see something going on. And if that's the case, instead of like turning to look, it's like, wait for a pause in the conversation and be like, hey, Kristin, give me 1 second. I want to hear the rest of whatever it is you're saying. Give me 1 second. Let me check in here. And so that, I think that's the way to like be present in the conversation itself, stop the conversation if need be to go address something, and then make sure you return to it, like seek that person out to finish the conversation so you don't just leave them hanging. I think the other place I was going is like, I've tried to create a culture enough to where when somebody walks in the door that does not look familiar, ideally myself or the coach that's there is going to go talk to them, but my members are going to recognize somebody as well, and they're going to go and talk to them and not just leave them hanging. So if I'm deep in a conversation and I can't break away to go and do this thing, that person's not just going to be standing in the corner ignored and like completely left alone. Somebody's going to go and talk to them and hopefully kill time before I get there. So those are a couple of the things that I've tried to employ to allow me to be like, I'm in this conversation. I'm going to stay present. I'm going to stay engaged. I'm going to stick with this thing. It's not 100%. Doesn't work all the time, but I'm trying to be aware of it and make it happen more. What was your strategy?
Yeah, pretty similar in that I just acknowledge it, right? Like if I'm talking, I will literally acknowledge it. I'll maybe put my hand on the person's arm for a second and just say, hey, I'm so sorry. I'm listening to you. I just, and then I'll tell them what's going on. And then always, always, always return to it. If I have to leave them for a second to take care of something, I come back and then I restart the conversation by essentially repeating the last thing that they said and then encouraging them to keep going. Or if I don't have to leave the conversation and it's just a quick interruption, or maybe my eyes drift over and they notice it, then I'll come back and I'll just acknowledge. I'm not going to pretend like it didn't happen. I'll just be like, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm listening to you. I just saw that person walk in, so-and-so's taking care of them. Okay. So anyways, you were saying, and then blah, blah, blah. So just not pretending like it's not happening. Just acknowledge.
Yeah. I think that's huge. I love, there's a couple comments here. Dr. Evil, talking about saying right or okay as a filler word. It just shows a lack of confidence. Yep. And looking for affirmation. Like how many times, and we see this oftentimes, how many times you have to give trainers feedback on giving lectures of right or okay said in their thing, looking for that affirmation. I want somebody to agree with me. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Does that make sense? Yeah.
Right?
That's a filler. Right? That is a filler. I've seen a lot of people, and what we're doing, exactly like Dr. Evil said, it undermines our confidence of presenting the information, because we're just constantly asking people, am I saying it in a way you understand? Does that make sense? Are you tracking? Do you get it? Yeah.
Which implies that the way we're saying
that I'm not
confusing.
Confident in the way that I'm explaining it.
Yeah. It's confusing. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And then,
I'm laughing at this. Hold on, I got to show this, because
that was the one I was trying to click on.
100%. It drives me crazy. Put it back where it's supposed to go. There's a Velcro on the back. Like, how much more simple do we have to make this, you guys? Where is the remote? The open gymmers, you guys are the worst. You hear me? Put the remote back where you got it, open gymmers.
Yeah, it's my other coaches or owners. My other owner that puts it randomly somewhere, and I'm like, if you always put it back, we always know where it's at. It's so much easier that way. Yeah, here's another one.
Amit, good to see you.
Yeah, it's been a minute. Recently, I gave feedback to one of our coaches to not carry the PVC pipe around and lean on it when they aren't using it as a correction tool. This helps the open body language. What do you think? 100%. It's like that thing can be a crutch or a safety blanket where people, I see them carry it around as like the thing to lean on or the thing to kind of hide behind, which closes them off. Or the other risky thing is I've seen people carry it around and then use it. I always like, it's like they're somebody at the zoo, like poking at the animals. Hey, push your knees out, lift your chest up.
Like just poking them with the stick. It's like, don't do that. That's awkward and not effective.
No. Now there are times where
anybody that does that, but maybe try to not do that anymore.
Yeah.
Just try it.
Put it down unless there's a certain fault that you use this as a correction for, and so you're going to intentionally give it. I've had this question asked, is it like, it's nothing in this is always 100%. And so, 99% of the time I'm putting the PVC pipe down. There is that 1%, say I'm teaching a push press and I know I like to put the PVC pipe on the ground and lean against somebody's back in the dip position, like a dip and hold for a push press. Then I will carry it around intentionally for that specific reason, on that specific movement, on that specific progression step. Other than that, I'm putting it away. So
there's definitely a couple go-to fixes that I like to use the PVC pipe for. If people are having trouble going around their knees for the deadlift, I need them to move their knees back a little bit. I'll usually use the stick. I'll put the stick behind their knees and say, hey, push the backs of your knees into the stick, because the back of the knee can be a little bit like, I don't really like putting my hand back there, So that's one that's good. I love the torso position in the push jerk or push press. Yeah, absolutely. But for the most part, you can distinguish pretty easily if there's a purpose to having that PVC pipe, or if it's just that safety blanket, kind of like, Gandalf's stick or whatever people like to. I think that's a Lord of the Rings reference, but
is that?
I can't say for certain.
That to me sounded like you were just like, are you tracking? Good.
Are you tracking?
Good. Is that what that you were just asking for confirmation right there?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think yes.
Kristin,
I am asking for. I am definitely asking for confirmation on that.
Yep. Kristin gave you the thumbs up, so you're good. You're good.
All right. Wonderful.
So we discussed eye contact, like when we're having those one-on-one conversations. I think it's also big that we make eye contact as we're coaching classes. Now, obviously, it's not a conversation, but like me giving you eye contact and attention when I say, hey, Kristin, chest up, or hey, Kristin, nice depth on your squat. That allows us to connect a little bit more there. It also gives us the ability to cue athletes that maybe don't like to be called out in front of class. Well, I guess this is going to help us go where I want to go next, which is the other way that we can improve our presence and attitude is using people's names. Using people's names. Someone's name is like their favorite word in whatever language that they speak. And so we should be doing that multiple times. Now, that being said, when we cue and correct, ideally I'm saying, hey, Kristin, push your knees out. Hey, Steve, lift your chest up. Because that way I'm able to say your name and make that connection. 2, I'm talking directly to you. And 3, it's amazing how when I say your name and tell you to do the thing, most everybody else in class is going to do that exact same thing. Whereas if I don't use your name and I just generally say, hey guys, lift your chest up, hardly anybody does it. It's like I talk to one person, everybody does it. I talk to everybody, nobody does it. But on occasion, there are times where I've got athletes that don't like me calling them out in class. They don't. I can just tell with their body language and their response when I say, Kristin, knees out, you get hurt or offended. And it's like, I'm not going to not tell you knees out, but I might not call you out in front of everybody. And so in order to do that, I'm going to make eye contact and I'm going to give you the point or the like, this is for you. Like and then knees out, guys. And then it's like, I'm looking at you, Kristin. And now all of a sudden I've got my message across. I've made that eye contact, that connection, and let you know that I'm covering that with you.
The other thing I like eye contact with for cueing is just if I'm making eye contact, looking at my athlete and offering them the cue, I can immediately assess whether or not the cue made sense to them. Like, when they have that facial expression and they're like, what? And they don't, like, obviously we make the assessment whether or not the movement itself got better. Right. But combine the two. If the movement doesn't get better and I can see that they have no idea what I'm talking about, that's going to help guide me as to what my next line of action is or what the next thing is I do. Right. So just kind of making that assessment of like where they are mentally with what is going on. And it's interesting that all of this, we're obviously talking about tips to make your presence and attitude and all of that better. But funny that it's just such a crossover with cueing, seeing, correcting. 100%. Everything just like bleeds into each other. So this is interesting. Oh, this is good. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. What if you've got somebody that constantly doesn't like being coached, even with expressions? So it's like
if I'm like, all right. Remember,
this
guys,
is not the athlete that just doesn't want to be coached because they don't want to be called out, but this is the one that like probably the athlete that thinks they have it figured out or they're too good or whatever it is. How do you deal with somebody that, because I was going to go there too, of like the facial expression when I make eye contact and I say, Kristin, knees out, I can tell if you're confused. I can tell if you bought in, and I can also tell if you are not listening.
Punch you in the face.
Yeah. If you were like, I heard you, but I am definitely not doing what you told me to do. So how do you deal with that athlete?
Oh man. It's a common question. And it, for me, is not a one size fits all.
I know. I wish we
like,
were like,
I really want to have,
do this one thing, right?
There's so many different variables that come into play. Is it the very first time I've ever met this person? Like, am I coaching this person for the very first time? Are they a member? Are they a drop-in? Are they moving safely? Is this just a performance thing that I want them to do? Or is it actually something that's going to impact whether or not they get hurt? All of these things, do I have what's my rapport with this person? Like, all of those things are going to come into play to guide how I'm going to handle it. Because
go ahead. Sorry.
At the end of the day, I'm not gonna not coach someone, so it's just gonna adjust like how it is I move forward. Like maybe I'm gonna shower them with like a few more good jobs on fill in the blank. Maybe I'm gonna ask them a question instead of being like, do this. It might be, hey, I noticed that you're doing this. Can you tell me a little bit about, your your technique or whatever. Go ahead. What do you
Yeah,
got?
that's where I was going with this is like in my earlier days of coaching, like when somebody would not respond to my coaching and my cues and my corrections, I was somewhat insecure. I wanted to present myself as somebody that was very knowledgeable and knew what I was doing. So anybody that pushed back, like it challenged and bruised my ego a little bit. So I would be kind of up in arms. Well, forget this person. They don't want to be coached. I'm not going to coach them. Maybe I don't even want them as members at my gym or
You're
whatever the
dead to
case may be.
me. Yeah.
Yes, you're dead to me, right? One of those where now it's more so it's like if somebody doesn't want to be coached and Jose says it's a long-time member,
Mm-hmm.
get curious. Be curious as to why they don't want to be coached and use that curiosity to, instead of kind of push that person away and like maybe shy away from coaching them or being around them in general, more so like lean into that and ask questions. Hey, I've been, Chris, I've been telling you to widen your feet, your squat. Tell me why, like, why do you like the narrow stance? You might get something from them. Like, uncovering the why behind what people are doing is going to give us a better chance to lead to the solution and get some coaching. From my experience, more often than not, there is some sort of external factor that is completely outside of me as a coach that drives them to not wanting to be coached. Like you've got athletes, like oftentimes it's either somebody that isn't willing to take a step backwards. It's like, hey, I know what I can perform. And when you tell me to do it different, it feels weird. I know I'm going to go slower in today's workout. Maybe I'll lift a little bit less weight and I can't my ego cannot handle that. I need to perform at the level that I can. And so you need to figure out that that's the case and then make it okay for them to take a step back. I've often found times where it's like you've got somebody that doesn't want to be coached or doesn't appear to want to be coached in an afternoon class. And finally, after asking questions and getting curious and digging in more, I finally get to the point where they're like, oh, well, my buddy Steve works out in the morning class and we always have a bet going on to see who's going to win the workout. And Steve did 135 pounds. So I'm going to do 135 pounds and I need to, do what he did and I need to beat him. And then it's like, okay, now I know your why. You want to compete with this other guy. Well, here's the deal. You move so bad that you're not going to be able to beat him, but you're way fitter than he is. And so if you take these 2 steps back with me for like a month and actually work on your movement, I promise you're going to beat Steve every single time. Now, if I get the buy-in by knowing his why and giving him a solution to that why, I've got to be able to deliver on that. If he listens to me for a little bit, he better be able to see the progress pretty quickly. But that might give me a chance to get his buy-in on the coaching there. So that's one example. But like to your point, it's hard to give just one answer to solve that problem. What do we got? Some like the community aspect.
Fair point. Yeah.
Yeah, and
they want to come in and throw down with each other, and just like you said, the dude that wants to beat Steve, it's like
if that's the case, and to your point, if it's just somebody that's moving inefficiently and it's not dangerous, and you don't want to be coached, and you're just going to come through and sweat and be safe, but not move as well as you could be and get as fit as you could be, I can live with that. But if you're moving in a way that has the potential risk for injury, I cannot live with that.
Yeah, that's really the line in the sand, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, I would agree with that. I will say that at the very least, before I'm gonna, just throw in the towel and be like, okay, I can live with that, I'm at least gonna still have that conversation like you were talking about, Todd. Like, get curious, have the conversation. And if it still comes out, the results still come out the same, it's like, all right, well, you're moving safe. You're not going to be as good as you have the potential to be, but
it's
your
fitness. Yeah, it's the same thing. It's the same as the athlete that's like, yeah, I'm not going to run. I'm just going to ride the bike. And you're like, okay, it's your fitness. I don't care. You don't want to have the capacity to run. That's fine. But don't complain to me when Murph comes around and you want to do Murph.
I feel like
And
you're
then,
personally attacked with this example,
yeah,
by the way.
yeah. And then you run a 12-minute mile and you wonder why, it went so bad. It's like, yeah, you can't not run all year long
It's
and then
too
expect to
cold
be good
to
at running.
run right
Yeah,
now.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. So
All right, so
posture,
using names.
eye contact, names. Here's
What
another one.
else?
Smile.
What?
Can you believe it? It is amazing, even if it's a fake smile, what it does to the mood of the person standing in front of you or the group standing in front of you, just by smiling.
I
It
was
is
working
such.
with the trainer this weekend at a seminar, and
I already know who it is, just
he
based on where we're going with this thing.
he was telling me, we're doing our little feedback, and we were chatting, and he said that two different times, someone came up to him. Now, these were people he knew, because they were people that he just kind of knew on, like, outside of the seminar. They were like, "Hey, are you okay?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm great. I'm fine." They're like, "All right, I'm just checking." And it was just a little, like, he was totally fine. Like, everything was great when he was, on and doing his roles and presenting. But people are watching us, people watch. And when your resting face looks like you're angry at the world, he was not. He was completely fine. But it was enough to prompt a couple people to ask him, like, "Hey man, are you all right? Everything good?" It's just, you gotta, like, a little fake smile every once in a while, just to kind of present how you're doing.
I've got two stories that relate to this one.
Okay.
One's with when Ackerman was living here in Florida and we worked together almost every weekend.
Yeah, I remember that.
And like, I got to the point where I got thrown on the demo box so much that I would get frustrated if I was put on the demo box. And it didn't really matter who was lecturing, but I wasn't probably the most pleased to be on the demo box. Especially if there was
A girl.
just different situations. I'm just going to put it that way.
Nobody's too good to do any role at any time.
Listen, I agree.
All right. Just so we get that out there.
But we would, like, there finally, after like a couple weeks of us, it seemed to be, we were working together a lot. He was giving the movement lectures and I was doing the demo. We got done one day with one of the lectures. They're like, "Dude, are you mad at me? Like, what's going on? Are you okay? Are you mad at me?" This is Ackerman. Mm-hmm. And him and I used to banter a bunch and, like, really close friends, all of that. And I'm like, "Yeah, why?" He's like, "Dude, when you're on the box, you just look like you hate me." And I was like, "Oh, that goes back to that attitude thing where I didn't have the most positive attitude in the world." And even though I had, like, yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. And so mixing in a smile on top of the box when you're doing something, maybe even you don't necessarily want to do it or don't like it, that's important. It comes across if it doesn't. The other story I've got is way back in my old school L2 days. So the official L4, back when it was a real deal thing, the L2 that you didn't get a chance to do. Yeah, you didn't get a chance to do that. But anyways, it was,
because I had not started coaching yet.
Exactly.
So that would impact that, right?
Yeah, but so it was similar to the L4 where it's an evaluation. It's not, you don't get feedback. You go, you coach, you get evaluated on that. And then at the end of the weekend of doing this coaching, you actually get face-to-face feedback by one of the trainers. And so I'm doing my L2. It was Boz and Chuck and Pat Sherwood that were there. And we get to the feedback portion of this thing, and they're going through all the steps, talking about how I did teaching wise, seeing wise, correcting, group management, all that kind of stuff. And I'd done pretty well and gotten to a point where I was in a position to pass. And we get towards the end of the session, and Pat looks at me. He's like, "I got one question for you." I'm like, "Yeah, what do you got?" He's like, "Do you like doing this?" And I'm like, "Oh my God, I love this. Yeah, it's the greatest. Yeah. Like, this is what I want to do." And he's like, "Really?" Because I didn't see you smile once all weekend long. And I'll tell you right now that if it doesn't look like you're having a good time and you're not having a good time, it's really hard for anybody else to have a good time. And that still sits with me, whatever this is, like 15 years later now, because of the fact that I was so zoned in and, like, I need to do the
concentrating.
thing. I
Mhm.
need to teach. I need to see. I need to correct. I need to check the box and do the thing that I just couldn't relax and let up. And it, I still fall into that trap when I am
Mhm.
trying to deliver something. I am so concerned with delivering the thing that sometimes it allows me to not just relax and have fun. And so mixing in, like we've already talked about, some of those fake smiles makes a big difference.
Now here's a great crossover again, right? And I'll tell people this, all the time. One of the benefits of having a lesson plan, knowing the points of performance, having those memorized, know how you're going to do your teaching progression, having all that planned out ahead of time opens up some bandwidth for you to relax and have a little fun. If you don't know all of that and you're so just laser focused on the content in the logistics and all of that, it's not even that you mean to not have fun or showcase that you're having a good time or you're enjoying to be there, but you're just concentrating so hard on delivering this high level product that it can come across exactly like Pat asked you, do you even want to be here?
Right.
And it the intent on your end was just, you were just trying so hard to do a good job and cover everything and just like crush the evaluation. And I mean, they could have potentially not passed you for that, because that is, if we're talking about the 6 criteria of a coach that, we're looking for, presence and attitude is one of them. And we say this often, right? Like you can have a coach that is really, really technically proficient, but if you take a class with them and it's like chewing on glass, that's not an effective coach. So, uh, have those plans, get the lesson plan out, know all of the points of performance, know all of that stuff. And then that can give you a little bit more breathing room to relax and have a little fun in your classes.
Yeah, 100%. And Amit makes this comment and makes this point, and I think it's great. It's like it's even more valuable to like sometimes joke about yourself, say things that went
That's my
wrong.
go-to. I love
Like
that. Yeah.
the reality of it is you're no matter how good you get or think you get, you're not going to coach a perfect class. And so being able to stop and laugh at yourself and smile and have a good time is going to be as important or more important than anything else. It's like nobody's what's the saying, right? Nobody's going to care what you said. They're going to care about how you made them feel.
Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
so, like, no one's going to care how well you delivered the points of performance of their squat. They're going to care on what it felt like coming to your class and whether they want to go back again. And I think that's kind of the big last piece. We've talked about good posture, eye contact, using names, smiling. The last one, the most important one, is simply to care. It's to care about people, to care about what you're doing. You're serving people. If you care, you're going to work on improving those other things along with all the other aspects of being a great coach. And so I think that's the big takeaway from this is like, hey, how much do you care about this? How do you show that each and every day? And are you willing to work on these things that sometimes aren't the most fun to work on? Or it's like sometimes you're like, yeah, I've got good presence and attitude. I like what I'm doing. I don't need to work on this. Well, can you be objective and figure out where you've got some strengths and weaknesses and what you can do to get better with that? If so, then that shows that you care and this is something that you want to do and want to continue to get better at. And lucky for us, if you want to get better, you can continue to get better. There is no end to this journey. You can get as good as you want by continuing to develop this thing. And we should be progressing and getting better throughout. So just know that's the case. Now, we got a couple questions from Instagram. One of them, which is great, Tia asked, any advice to start coaching my first class? I'm very nervous. Kabo, what do you got for Tia? Day one, first class. What do we got?
I would say prepare, right? No, nervousness is great. It's be nervous, embrace it. It means that everything we were just talking about, it means you care. Create a little lesson plan, learn, make sure that you have a plan for how you're going to teach the movements. Keep it pretty simple. Don't try to, knock every single thing you could possibly do for every single movement you're teaching out of the park. Just like focus on a couple things. And just have fun with it and know that you're going to mess up and you're probably going to make a couple mistakes. You're probably going to forget something, and that's okay. Like, your athletes are surprisingly forgiving, especially when they know you're a newer coach. And I just, there's no better way to just get started on the journey than just getting on the coaching floor and getting some reps out of the way. What do you have, Todd?
Yeah, that's it. Like in Kay says it well too. Make every member feel like as they come in that they're welcome, they're safe, and they're inclusive in an inclusive space. And so if you can do that, you'll buy yourself time to figure out the rest of that stuff, to
Oh
figure out
yeah.
how to teach, see, and correct, manage the group. And also be confident in what you're doing, meaning, hey, you're leading class. I always give the analogy of like, you're flying the plane. We're either landing or we're going to the side of the mountain, but you're flying it. And so go ahead and like
What an
wherever the
analogy.
destination is,
Yeah.
you're taking us there. And so that's the only option we've got. So go ahead and fly
Who's
that
with
thing.
me?
Who's with me? Here's where we go. So enjoy it. You're going to get better. It's going to be fun. It's supposed to be fun. If it's fun for you, it's going to be fun for them, and they'll come back and you'll get a chance to get better at it.
And here's the thing.
So
Let me add on to your flying the plane analogy. I'm not going to
yep.
add on with like more analogy, but oftentimes I'll see coaches that are brand new just kind of uh, basically give the whole class a pass for not listening to them or not staying engaged or just kind of the group management and control. Cause it's like, well, I'm new. And it's like, no, establish it from the get go. Like bring everybody, hey guys, come on in. We're going to head on over the pull up bar. And now we're going to talk about pull ups. Joe, come on over. Nancy, bring it in. Like get everybody there. Just establish the fact that it's like everything is going to be coach led. I'm the captain. I'm flying the plane. Y'all are with me. And just establish that right from the beginning in a kind, fun way. And that's going to do really well to set the stage for how you run your classes. And you can continue to build on that.
Yeah, and that I think that's perfect for another question we got from Instagram from Rasta Chu, I believe. How do you manage or handle a class setup when longtime members don't follow the class dynamics and keep moving ahead of the class and such? And like just as you just described, of like you lead the charge, and if somebody starts moving ahead, I think there's two ways to do it. It can be like, hey, Kristin, hey, where are you going? Come on back over here. We're not there yet. That one, or you do the like pause and I'm going to wait until everybody's in line and we're just sitting here in silence. Then all of a sudden the person that like is doing their own thing all of a sudden realizes there's been like 60 seconds of silence, or somebody that wants to get going is going to give them the elbow to the ribs and be like, yo, get in line. I want to move to the next thing. Will you shut up or quit doing what you're doing and let us get going? It's like, you don't have to scream over somebody. You don't have to call somebody out and make them feel crappy, but you can, like, silence is powerful. And also just
Silence
the
is
like
powerful. Yes.
the simple like, hey, Kabo, come on over this way. We'll get there in just a minute. I know you got
Yeah,
this,
and
whatever.
sometimes it depends on the scenario and who the person is, which strategy I'm going to take. Like I can think of very specific members that I'll call their name because they're just kind of like on their own thing and they're not trying to be disrespectful or anything like that. And I'll call their name. They're like, oh, then they come on over. And then there's others who, maybe they feel maybe it's like, I don't need to go through this, or I'm going to warm up a little bit extra, or I'm going to take a couple steps forward, and then I'm just the silence. And then usually one of the members will take care of it for me. They'll be like, Todd, because it's like they want to get going. And we all are looking at Todd hanging on the pull-up bar doing his own thing, waiting for him. I don't have to say anything. We'll just let one of the members like yell his name,
Yeah, 100%. We got some good feedback here for that first class. Prep, study the lesson plan, have some cues in mind, go in with a game plan on cues and corrections, and focus on one thing at a time. That's it. That's where we start. Get good at doing one thing before you try to do two. It's like doing less will allow you to achieve more. We got one from Rob. First class, prepare well, have fun, and don't be afraid to not get it right the first time. You're taking on the best job in the world. Hell yeah. There's no better advice than that. Best job in the world. Doesn't mean it's easy by any means. Doesn't mean there's not going to be some tough days by any means, but it's a fantastic job. It's not going to be perfect. It never will be perfect. Prepare, go in with a game plan, and enjoy it. Yeah, it's going to be fun.
It's a great way to end everything, I think.
Yeah. Well, this was fun. Enjoyed chatting with you a little bit about presence and attitude. And what do we got next week? I think we're going to be discussing establishing the stimulus. We're revisiting
Oh
that thing. I
yeah.
know
Yeah. I
Brittany and
think you
myself
and
talked
Brittany
about it a
did
little bit,
that.
but
It's a
we're going to,
great thing to it's a great discussion though to have, again and again, just to make sure that we have a good kind of grasp and understanding on how that goes, because that can definitely be something that's pretty challenging for people.
yeah.
Yeah.
And if you guys enjoyed this conversation, if you guys want more of this good stuff, a couple places you can find it. Affiliate University, you're an affiliate owner. Your coaches get access. If you sign up for Affiliate University, your coaches get access to our coach development program, 26 lessons, level 4 trainers leading the show.
Multiple
Great
live
place.
calls every week. Just
Yeah,
so
lessons every
fun.
week, all
Yeah.
kinds of great stuff. And then if you're just a coach, you're not an affiliate owner, and you want this stuff, the Knowledge Pro is the place to be. We've got lessons there as well. We've got multiple weekly live calls. You can get questions. You can get feedback. You also get access to the Coach's Eye, where you get a class actually evaluated by one of us. So make sure you guys are taking advantage of all of that stuff. Appreciate seeing everybody on. Kabo, we will see you in about a week.
Yeah.
All
Sounds
right.
good. See
All
you
right.
next
Thanks,
week,
team.
guys. Thanks.